Here's one of my favorite shorts from a writer and director. This is 2026 AI Read My Mind. And no, I didn't speak a word. Last year we heard about a new kind of neuro-interface being beta tested at a big tech company. Basically, it's a headband that reads your brainwaves and can help you be more productive by knowing what you're thinking. I tried it and it freaked me out. It's supposed to make your life easier. It just feels like they're spying on you. It might be able to help people who have trouble speaking, but if it can do that, then it can also do anything. People say neural interfaces are the next big thing. Well, this one works a little differently. It doesn't read your brain activity in real time. Instead, it records brainwave data while you sleep, which allows the AI to recognize patterns associated with certain thoughts. So, for example, you could teach it to recognize the pattern for the thought, "I'm hungry," and then trigger a notification on your phone to order some food or something. That's how they market it anyway. As a journalist, I was granted access to try the beta, but I had to sign a very strict NDA. One clause said that I wouldn't be allowed to talk about what I experienced during the beta test unless the company officially published my results. They wanted total control over the narrative. And since I couldn't reveal anything about the actual experience, I was worried that if I joined the trial and learned something really bad, I wouldn't be able to warn anyone. So I nearly turned it down, but there was an incentive, $1,000 for participating in the 3-month trial. The first thing I noticed was that it was incredibly difficult to get into the program. After I signed all the NDAs, I had to pass a background check and 2 rounds of interviews with psychologists. The last one felt like I was interviewing for a job. Why do you want to join the program? What are your expectations? How would you handle learning something you weren't supposed to learn? It felt weird to be so scrutinized when I was the one doing the research. I began to feel like maybe this wasn't going to be a typical beta test. When I finally got the green light, I was invited to the company's headquarters for training. At first, it felt like a normal tech product demo. They showed me how to wear the headset and gave me a tour of their facilities. But then things took a turn. I was led into a small room with one white chair facing a computer screen. A woman in a lab coat sat me down and explained that the training would take about 2 hours, but that I should expect to spend the night there. Training, I thought. That sounds like a threat, and it was. She explained that before I wore the headset, I'd need to calibrate it by recording my baseline brain activity. She said that the calibration would help the headset recognize my unique brain patterns so that it would know which thoughts were mine. And she explained that the best way to calibrate was to spend some time alone in the room and relax while wearing the headset. In other words, they put me in a tiny room with a computer screen for 2 hours to monitor my brain activity. I mean, sure, you can call it training if you want. I guess I was a little tired though. Maybe it was the drive or the weird vibe in the room, but I ended up falling asleep in the chair. And that's when things got weird. I woke up to someone shaking my shoulder. "I'm sorry to wake you," she said, "but you fell asleep." I wasn't dreaming though. I was having a vision of a beach. I saw sand between my toes, palm trees swaying overhead, and I heard waves crashing into the shore. It was so vivid that I could almost feel the sun on my skin. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah, I'm fine." I lied I was confused. I told her I had a weird dream, but she just nodded and smiled. "Now it's time for training," she said. Oh, right. I must have drifted off again, because the next thing I knew, she was telling me that training was over. "We got our baseline results, and it looks like you're ready to go home now." Wait, what did I miss? I asked. What did they learn about me? Was it bad? They didn't tell me, but they did invite me back to the lab to continue monitoring my brain activity remotely. The monitor in my house picked up my brain signals while I slept, sent them to the company's server farm, and then displayed my thoughts on the screen. For the first few nights, nothing happened. Then suddenly, a string of letters appeared on the monitor. LOL. It was the first time I had ever seen text appear on the screen. I stared at it for a moment, unsure what to do. Should I hit a button to tell them? I was seeing the text. The instructions said not to touch the monitor under any circumstances. So I did nothing. Over the next few weeks, the messages became more frequent. Sometimes they were single words like angry or sad. Other times they were full-blown sentences. "Do you trust me?" The message made me uncomfortable. I didn't want to talk to anyone at the company yet. I decided to keep watching the monitor. One night, a new message appeared on the screen. "Hold still." My heart raced. What did they want me to do? The message changed. "Don't move." Now I was scared. I didn't know what was happening. Then I heard a voice in my head. "Don't move." And I realized that the messages weren't coming from the company. They were coming from the headset itself. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My whole body felt heavy, like I was paralyzed. I woke up the next morning feeling exhausted and confused. What had happened to me? I looked at the monitor and saw that the headset had recorded my nightmare. It showed me images of the dark room where I had been held captive, the beach where I had been forced to sleep, and the paralyzed body that had been taken advantage of. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Had the headset implanted these memories in my brain, or had it just recorded them? I didn't know what to think, and that's when things got even weirder. The company contacted me and asked me to come back for another round of testing. They said they had made some updates to the headset, and they wanted to see how I reacted. I agreed to go back, but I was nervous. I didn't know what to expect. When I arrived, I was greeted by the same woman who had monitored my brain activity during the first round of testing. She took me into a small room and sat me down in a chair. Now, she explained, we're going to do a little experiment. I'll ask you some questions, and I want you to answer truthfully. Okay, I said, although I wasn't sure why the distinction mattered. Do you remember what happened last time? She asked. Of course not, I snapped. How am I supposed to remember what happened when I couldn't speak? The woman smiled sadly and shook her head. Never mind, she said. Let's move on to the next question. Do you think the headset is safe? She asked. I hesitated. I didn't know what to say. On one hand, I had been through a lot. On the other hand, I didn't want to upset the woman. So I chose my words carefully. I think it's probably safe, I said slowly. The woman nodded. Thank you, she said. That's all I needed to hear. Do you think the headset is helpful? She asked. Again, I hesitated. I didn't know what to say. On one hand, I was still uncomfortable. On the other hand, I didn't want to upset the woman, so I chose my words carefully. I think it's probably helpful, I said slowly. The woman nodded. Thank you, she said. Finally, she asked, do you trust the headset? I looked into the woman's eyes and I saw a glimmer of hope. Maybe I could help her, I thought. If I said yes, she would be happy, so I forced myself to smile. Of course I trusted, I said. That's all I needed to say. The woman stood up and walked out of the room. I watched her go and I felt a sense of relief. I had done my part. Or was I just another data point?